This is In-Ear Insights, the Trust Insights podcast. This episode of In-Ear Insights is brought to you by SpinSucks. If you work in communications or public relations, you've heard of the PESO media model, paid, earned, shared, owned, pioneered by Ginny Dietrich and the team at SpinSucks. Take the next step and level up your career by earning a professional PESO model certification from SpinSucks and Syracuse University. In an 8-week online course, you'll learn PESO model strategy, effective use of all 4 media types, how PESO forms the foundation of your overall communication strategy, and how to tie communications to business impacts like lead generation and overall business goals. When you complete the course, you'll earn an accredited certificate from Syracuse University's S.I. Newhouse School of Public Communications, a powerful tool for setting yourself apart and above in the job market. Learn more about the certification today at trustinsights.ai/PESO. That's trustinsights.ai/PESO. In this week's In-Ear Insights, we are talking about a project that we've been working on for over a year now regarding the analysis of hate crime data that is published by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, in their Uniform Crime Reporting report. And in light of the many different current events, the fact that June is Pride Month in the United States and around the world, we thought we'd take a look more at some of the data and discuss the importance of making sure that the data we use to make decisions for anything, business, society, social good, is reliable and is something that we can take action on. So I want to start this off. Katie, how strongly do you believe in the general concept of you measure what you manage, and if you can't measure it, you can't manage it?
I feel very strongly in it. However, I feel like there are going to be gray areas. And so we know that things like hate crimes are vastly underreported. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to try to manage it. I think what ends up happening is, and this is my speculation, I'm not an FBI detective, but my assumption is that there's so many things happening that paperwork and reporting is probably the lower priority, as opposed to actually getting out there and trying to take action and make changes and, help people. So it's not a black and white, you have to have the data in order to manage the problem. That said, if you have no data, then you cannot effectively manage the problem at all. You need to have some kind of understanding of the magnitude of the issue. And so, again, unfortunately, we know that hate crimes are drastically underreported for a variety of reasons. It might be that the person who is affected by it is not reporting it. The person who is responding to it is not, logging it or reporting it. The systems that it's getting reported into are not connected to anything else besides themselves. There's a variety of reasons why these things are not reported. And, you can draw those parallels back to any company who is doing their due diligence to collect data. But in this context, we are focused specifically on hate crimes.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that surprised me when I was looking into this data is the low level of actual reporting. So there's a legal framework, which is, does the state have laws against hate crimes? And then is that state required to provide data to the federal government? And what shocked me was there are around 37 states, I think, around 30 states that have hate crime laws and are required to collect data on them and submit them. There are an additional 16 states that have hate crime laws but do not require data collection. So it's optional for state and local police to collect data. And then there's 4 states that just don't have anything on the books at all. They're like, nope, we're not even going to try. But even in those states where it is required, the level of reporting and compliance with that data collection is extremely low. One of the tables that the FBI provides is percentage of police departments and authorities that are reporting. The highest percentage of compliance is the state of Connecticut, where out of 97 police departments and authorities, 34 submit data, which is a 35% compliance rate. And then you get down to, some states like Wyoming and Alabama, they submitted no data whatsoever. Like, nope, nothing happened here. And so when you have systems that are not reporting data, what's the solution? What's some ways to think about getting around this? Because we know there are problems. One look at today's headlines tells you very clearly there are problems everywhere. It's not, it's just that state's problem over there. So we're fine. No, it's every place in the country. What are some things that you would advise, an activist, a social good organization, like, hey, the data's missing, but there's a problem. What are some options?
Well, one of the words that you mentioned was governance. And I want to be clear when I'm speaking about governance in this context, I'm not talking about the government. I'm talking just about data governance, which is really setting up those checks and balances and procedures and accountability. And that, as you're talking through, that only a certain amount of states have these regulations, but the compliance level is really low, that to me says that there's a process issue where there's nobody saying, hey, you didn't submit your data. This is the process. Is there a problem? How do we get this data back? And, I'm very much oversimplifying it because I don't know the inner workings of any of these states and what's really going on there. But from a high level, that's where I would start, is what is the process for getting the information from the person dealing with the situation into the system, into the larger database of information. So if you think about it in that 3-step process, very similar to if you're working on your customer experience, how do you get the information from the customer into the right system, into the larger report, to have that full picture of what's going on? Process wise, this is really no different. And so if you're thinking about it in terms of, hey, I'm seeing that there's a problem with the data, reach out to those states. I'm sure that, we can provide some resources to say, if you're seeing issues with this data, reach out to this particular bureau, this state organization. Speak up and say, hey, it looks like you're missing some data. The worst that they can say is, no, we're not, and then just go about your day. But if you're worried, as you should be, that there's missing information, that's where I would start. And I think that that's obviously something that when we do these analyses, we do that and we reach out to these organizations and say, we took a look at the publicly available data. We noticed as data scientists that there's some inaccuracies or some anomalies here. Can you help us understand why that is?
Yep. And in table 13 from the Uniform Crime Report, and we're going to put links into the accompanying blog post so that if you want to look at this data, I would encourage you to look at this data yourself. It actually breaks it down to the city level. So this is something that anyone who is interested can pick up this spreadsheet. And it's just an Excel spreadsheet. It's nothing fancy. Nothing, doesn't require any fancy tools. Look at your town in here and go, why is my town reporting zeros for everything? Did we actually have no hate crimes in Q1 of 2018? You can go talk to your local chief of police nicely, in a civil, productive way, and say, how are you folks handling the reporting of data? Is it something that perhaps you can even volunteer and say, hey, would you like some help filling out the FBI's forms, right? If you can take a part as a citizen analyst in improving the reporting in your community, you help the overall problem be solved because you are now adding good information into the system. And that's something that people will understand. Oh, this is something we can use to make decisions. Your town's mayor or your town's town council or whatever can look at this data and go, oh, actually, yeah, we do have a problem here. Now, there will be some places and some municipalities where people will say, we don't want to see the problem. And now you have the ability to go and say, okay, well, for the person who's running against you in the next election, hey, did you know that this person said we have absolutely no interest in civil rights? And say, is that something you would like to add to your campaign issues? Even if you do little more than doing the analysis and reaching out to your elected officials. You are doing something to advance the cause forward. And I think one of the things we were talking about before we started today's episode was, what can you do with a lot of this, with a lot of what's going on? Yes, absolutely. Donate to organizations that are impacted. Yes, absolutely. Educate yourself, and understand the scope of the issues. But once you've done that, you can also use whatever your particular skills are, whether it's data analysis, governance, outreach, social media marketing expertise, whatever it is that you're good at. You can take that and put it to good use towards a cause, towards something like improving civil rights. And I don't want that point to get lost, that whatever your capabilities are, you have the ability to use them for social good. You want to actually, Katie, chat a bit about, how we think about social good? Because I think I'm not, definitely don't want to say, this is the right way to do it. It's not.
Mhm.
It's what we've chosen because it's what we have to offer.
I do want to talk about it, and I apologize in advance if I get emotional, because everything is very emotional right now, and I am an emotional person. Um, we try to approach social good in a very simplistic way of doing well and doing right by everybody else. And so always trying to be honest, trying to be fair, trying to be as unbiased as possible, trying to be as transparent as possible, really trying to collect as much information as we can before forming, a solid opinion and putting that stake in the ground, making sure that, our research is well rounded. And so in terms of social good, you know, we try to pay it forward as much as we possibly can. And so, as Chris was talking about, what skills do you have? We often look at where are our collective skill sets. And so, Chris is obviously very strong in data investigation and data analysis. And so, Chris, you spend a lot of time looking at these types of data sets. You've been doing that a lot for the pandemic, and now you're starting to, it's our yearly annual look at hate crime data, which is really an unfortunate thing to say that it's an annual thing, but it is, because hate crime is not going away anytime soon, and the information is only getting, deeper and larger. And so what we try to do with the resources that we have is just try to educate and help people understand, here's what's going on from our perspective. Here's what we have been able to put together, and here's a list of resources so that you can then take this information and do what you want to with it. We don't want to tell people how to feel, how to think, how to act. That's not our job. It's really nobody's job. It's you as an individual need to take all of the information available to you and make your own informed decisions. And so we are trying to help individuals make informed decisions based on the information available. And so when we talk about social good, that is what we're trying to do. A few years back, Chris, you did an analysis of why people didn't vote in an election. You didn't approach it as, you have to vote, you have to do this. You were providing the information to say, here's what happened and why people didn't vote. And so if we see the top 5 reasons why people didn't vote, here are some potential solutions for you to go activate that voter base. And with this information, it's very much the same. It's, here's the information that's going on in your state, your city, your town. Here's some additional resources to do something about it. You brought up a really good solution, which is volunteer. So volunteer to help make these things actionable, volunteer to help get the data all in one place, volunteer at an organization who is struggling because of everything that's happening.
Exactly. We know that, everybody knows that a lot of the nonprofits and the social good organizations out there, because of the pandemic, are seeing fewer donations, people who are not able to contribute as much financially. But on the flip side, there's the opportunity to contribute your skills, your efforts. If you can, watch one less night of Netflix, you can add some value to these organizations in some way. And even if it's not with an organization, as an individual citizen, one of the things you can do is look at the information and say, what can I do in my community? The good and the bad of things like dealing with hate crimes is that they're everywhere. There's no place that is immune from it, unless you literally live in a mountaintop and there's nobody else in your zip code. Which I think there's a few places like Alaska that are like that. Other than that, everybody has a neighborhood. Everybody has a community. You don't have to fix the world. You don't have to fix the United States. You cannot fix, the federal government, but you absolutely can get to know your town. You can absolutely get to know your neighbors. And you can absolutely, in a civil and productive way, engage with your local officials to say, here's some things that I saw. Do you guys need some help with it? Is there something that, you want some help with the paperwork? And so I would say, to wrap up, take what's going on right now, however you are affected by it, and use it as motivation to help make things better. You have skills, you have a network, you have digital capabilities. If you're listening to this, by default, you have digital capabilities. Please put them to work. Please put them to work to make the world a better place. And it doesn't have to be on this particular cause, although certainly is welcome. But there are so many ways, from dealing with hunger, dealing with injustice, dealing with diseases, dealing with medical care and access. There are so many ways and so many different things. So find something that you care about, that you want to see made better in your community, and use your skills for that.
I would add to that. Sorry, I would add to that I think that where a lot of us are, myself included, is sort of that analysis paralysis of, there's so many things happening, I want to make a difference. The gesture that you make doesn't have to be a large one. It can be a small gesture. It can be showing kindness to your neighbor, showing kindness in your community. That's a start. That's already, moving the movement forward.
Absolutely. You don't have to save everyone, but if you save someone, you've made a gigantic difference in the world. So if you have follow-up questions or you want to chat about this, feel free to join our Slack group, Analytics for Marketers, over at trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers. And if you want to ask questions like, hey, this is an issue I would like to engage with, drop them by Slack and ask us, because we may be able to offer some suggestions, things that we've seen, data repositories we know about that could help you advance your work in that cause. As always, thank you for listening. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Want help solving your company's data, analytics, and digital marketing problems? Visit trustinsights.ai today and let us know how we can help you.